the Rambler Network.
Hello, welcome back to The Digressor. I'm Trevor, and in this episode, I am talking about Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. I'm sure most people haven't heard of him, unless you're like a really big Disney fan, or you've played Disney Dreamlight Valley, or Disney Speedstorm, or Epic Mickey, or you basically have to be like really big Disney fan to know who he is. He was actually Walt Disney's original mascot. So I like to consider myself kind of like an amateur Disney historian. I wouldn't actually say I know everything about Disney. I'm just kind of fascinated with like the early history of it and like how it started and like Walt's life and everything. And I've watched so many documentaries, seen all those old shorts. And I've always been fascinated by Oswald. And it's kind of a heartbreaking story, actually, if you think about it. And I think they should make it into a movie. Like, you know, the real life story, not make an Oswald movie. Well, I mean, they could make an Oswald movie. That would definitely put him more into the public spotlight. So, basically, one of the very first things Walt Disney did, like the person Walt Disney, was the Alice Comedies, which that's a deep cut that I don't think anybody listening to this would have heard of. They are basically 57 shorts that were made between 1923 and 1927. They were actually live action animated hybrid, like Roger Rabbit. This was back in 1923. This was the 1920s. And he was doing live action animated hybrid. So like the whole like Disney magic was long ago. Like people hadn't seen anything like this much at the time. And there were several actresses that played Alice throughout its run. And the most famous one was Virginia Davis, who passed away in 2009. She was 15 when she started playing Alice. But, unfortunately, by 1927, it was getting too expensive for Walt and Ub Iwerks, who was Walt's animation chief animator, basically. And if you know anything about the early days of Disney, like a lot of these Disney Blu-rays all come with like documentaries about like the early, like especially like when they were doing like the Diamond Edition, Platinum Edition of these movies, like Pinocchio and all of that. They would have all these documentaries, and I watched a lot of them. Pretty much every one of them talked about. Obviously, they talked about Walt, but they also talked about Ub Iwerks, and you learn a lot about him. He was like, other than Walt, he was like the second most important person at the company. And yeah, like I could just do an episode on him, but I won't. Moving on. So the Alice Comedies were getting way too expensive for Walt and Ub, obviously, because they were a tiny company at the time, and this was not an easy process to do, and they did 57 of them, so you can imagine. So it was around 1927 that Charles Mintz, who was a film producer at the time, he suggested that they go to Universal, because Universal was looking for, they were looking to get into doing animations themselves, because that was catching on quick at the time. And so Between 1927 and the early days of 1928, so less than a year, Walt created a rabbit character named Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. He was kind of a mischievous character. If you watch some of those old cartoons, he's basically like Dennis the Menace, where like he just goes and gets into trouble. Yeah, well, maybe not Dennis the Menace. See, Dennis he's mischievous, but he's like kind-hearted about it. Oswald was just kind of loud and obnoxious, basically, and that was his whole character. And it was kind of funny because like because it was that old rubbery animation of like the early days, and like the creativity they used in those old shorts. You just have to go watch them. The very first one was called Trolley Troubles, and it premiered on the 5th of September, 1927. At the time, because like I said, this is the late, I was going to say 2020s. In the late 1920s, the crash of 29 was imminent, and they could, I guess at the time, they could kind of sense something was coming on, so they weren't really paying Walt and Ub as much as they felt they should be getting paid. So he took the train. Walt took the train from California to New York to try to get a better contract. They offered him a 20% cut, which was not what he was wanting. And unfortunately, his Walt's team basically was like, "Yep, we'll take it," and they basically left him and went to Charles Mintz Company, which was later named Screen Gems. You've heard of that. I know you've heard of that. Or maybe that's just me. I don't know. Screen Gems is still around. When Screen Gems started, it mostly consisted of former Disney employees. Because I guess they felt Walt Disney wasn't going to last. Because they were a small independent studio. And yeah, so Universal, since Walt created Oswald the Lucky Rabbit while contracted to Universal, Oswald officially belonged to Universal. And so when he went back to California, he left without Oswald. He wasn't allowed to make any more Oswald cartoons. They kept making Oswald cartoons for years. All the way until they had like color cartoons. And if you watch like I've seen like all of the available ones. Some of them have been lost. If you watch some of those old ones, you can tell the quality went down. And then at some point they added voice acting, and it's like, no, this isn't. This Disney is what made it good. Disney Oswald shorts were the best times for the character. And Universal didn't know how to handle the character, so they just were like, hey, let's just do whatever. And then you could tell if you watch those old cartoons, the quality definitely goes down. So there's a myth about what happened next, and I believed it for the longest time. Because like everyone talked about it, and it's what everyone repeated, but like you dig deeper and that's actually not what happened. The myth is that after Walt left the contract negotiation that failed and he lost Oswald, on the train ride back to California, he was like, "Wow, crap! I need a new character." And then he saw a mouse run by, and he goes, "I got it!" And then he made up Mickey Mouse on the spot. And by the time he got back to California, he had Mickey Mouse fully a full-fledged character, fully formed, and the voice done and everything. And that's the myth. And that's not what happened. It's a good story, and if they make a movie about Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, they totally should add that. They should make that into part of the movie, because it is a good story. It's not true, though. Walt and Ub ended up brainstorming for a new character. They workshopped a new character in secret that would belong to him. Walt was like, if I make a new character, it's going to belong to me. He basically Taylor's versioned a new character. And so one of the artists named Hugh Harman in 1925, he sketched a mouse he saw, and he actually he sketched it over Walt. It's kind of like get his appearance and stuff. He basically made the mouse character using circles, so it's easier to draw. And the sketch is kind of set off to the side. Well, he showed Walt, and he really liked the character, and so they workshopped it, and they refined it, made it different. At first, he made the mouse character look like Oswald with shorter ears, but as they kept doing it, kept reworking it, the mouse became its own distinct looking character. And at first, he was going to call the character Mortimer Mouse. Can you imagine? But his wife, Lillian Disney, actually suggested Mickey. And there's a myth that it was named after Mickey Rooney, but I haven't seen anything to actually confirm that. The source is Mickey Rooney himself. He later said, "Oh yeah, I was there, and they named it after me." But I didn't see any evidence that he was there, actually. So, I don't know if Mickey Mouse is named after Mortimer Mouse. I mean, wow. I don't know if he's named after Mickey Rooney. Again, that's a good story. Probably not true. And then Steamboat Willie premiered, and the rest is history. In 2006... Walt Disney, the company, because Walt was long dead by then. I did it again. Walt Disney Company, there we go. They traded Al Michaels, who was an announcer for NBC Sunday Night Football, which, as you know, is Universal. They traded Al Michaels for the rights to Oswald. So now Disney owns Oswald again. And yeah, that was exciting. First time I heard of Oswald was actually in 2009. I was at the library. Back then I go to the library a lot. And there was this DVD collection, because they would have all these Disney DVD collections of specific things. Here's the Donald Duck collection from the early days, and here's the Mickey Mouse collection and Goofy collection of all the shorts from back then. And I saw one of Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, and I was like, I never heard of that one. So I checked it out, and all the shorts were on there, and there was a little documentary about what happened, and and the rest is history from there. And I don't remember specifically that documentary, because I've seen so many since then, and all the shorts are on YouTube. All the Oswald shorts are on YouTube, and you can go watch them if you want. I will put a link to that in the show notes. I haven't been using the show notes; I've been forgetting, but hey, I found something to put in the show notes. Yeah. Anyway, and in 2010, Oswald actually made his official reintroduction into Disney by being in... He's in the game Epic Mickey, and the premise of that is there's a land of the wasteland, or just wasteland. It's like a corrupted mirror of Disneyland, with Oswald at the center as the leader, and he took all of the things that shows Mickey and put himself there, like the famous partner statue with Walt and Mickey holding hands. Oswald's in the statue, and Wasteland is basically a place for all the forgotten characters to live. And then since Walt was the main forgotten character, he was the leader of the world. And I never beat it, so I don't know what happened. Oswald's kind of set up as the villain, but I have a feeling that that Oswald and Mickey are friends by the end, because in Epic Mickey 2, they're like partners. They're like friends. So like, okay, yeah. Oswald's not seen as a villain in general, so I have a feeling that he wasn't the villain for the whole game. I don't know. I should finish it. They just re-released it. It was a remake called Epic Mickey Rebrush. It came out last year in 2024, and I've been meaning to try it. But most notably, from my personal experience, I'm a huge fan and player of Disney Dreamlight Valley. I've been playing that. It's a game that came out in 2022, and in 2023, they released their first expansion called Eternity Isle, and then last year in 2024, they added Oswald to the game, and he's one of the characters. And at first, I really loved what they did with the character, because all the characters have like the same dialogue box, and they say things. They say things in character. Like there's Elsa and Anna, and then Maribel, and then there's classic characters like Mickey, Minnie, Disney, Daisy's added to the game. Scrooge McDuck, Goofy, like all of them are in there. They've added Timon and Pumbaa, Simba, Nala, Scar, Mike, Sully. There's like 50 something characters, I think, and they all live in the valley. And there's two expansion islands. There's Eternity Isle, and then there's Storybook Vale, which they just released that like a couple months ago. And so with Oswald, when they introduced him in Eternity Isle, when you spoke to him, he didn't have a voice. His dialogue box was black and white, and was like an old silent film, and it was like a narration. And I love that. I love that they did that. That was so creative. And then they ruined it, because part of his storyline was he found a way to get his voice back, and then it's just a regular dialogue box. And they should have kept the old silent film thing, because it made his character stand out. And plus, I don't really like his voice. They made his voice like, I just made it sound like the know-it-all kid from Polar Express. It's a very loud and obnoxious voice, which, granted, that's his personality, but I don't like his voice. I love the character. It's like they kept the whole wacky zaniness of it, and like things he does, they acknowledge in the game. Like the characters acknowledge, like Oswald doesn't make any sense. The things he does, the things he says, and then he's like, yeah, of course, trolleys have souls and can speak, and like have a life, and they fly. Why wouldn't they? It's like, oh, okay. But yeah, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit is. Well, he's now owned by Disney, and they can do whatever he wants with it. They should use him more. Like they kind of use him sparingly. Like I said, they use him. He's one of the main characters in Epic Mickey and Epic Mickey 2. They put him in Disney Speedstorm, which I have played just a couple times just to kind of try it out. It's a free to play game. It's basically a Mario Kart clone, but I think I wouldn't say better. It's one of the better clones. I think the best Mario Kart like game is Mario Kart. But all the Mario Kart clones, out of all of them, I think the best one is Speedstorm. And it's free. It's free to play. Of course, there's a bunch of microtransactions. You can buy skins and power-ups and stuff. Oswald is a character in there. I have not played as him. I've raced as Jack Sparrow and Mulan. Yeah, so I've only played a couple times. But Oswald is a character in there. You can race as him. He's also in, like I said, Dreamlight Valley. And I know he's had other appearances. I don't know if... because I know they've had kind of like a Mickey Mouse and Friends cartoon that had like terrible animation. I didn't like it, like the very simplistic style. It kind of looked like they were trying to go for the old classic style from like the Steamboat Willie days, but like I did not like how it came out. And I think someone told me Oswald is in that, but I didn't see it. And I was doing I did like brief research for this, and I didn't see him pop up on there. They should use him more, because like they own the rights. Use him. He's going to be forgotten again. He was a leader of the Forgotten Lands. He was a leader of the Forgotten Cartoons, and now he's gonna get forgotten again because they're barely using him. But yeah, that is the story of Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. But I digress.
The Rambler Network.